Cassidy.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
I'm good. How's it going with you? You're invincible and you're dressed as a superhero.
Okay, sure. I am. I feel like a superhero right now. I'm very excited.
It's an outfit. It's an outfit.
It's an outfit.
I think it can fight crime on its own.
So can you in those boots.
The boots
those are pretty fantastic.
Yeah, well,
pretty good.
So let's talk a little. Let's start at the beginning, and I don't mean 4:30 this morning when you arrived on time for sound check at the Today Show.
Yes.
On time.
Very prompt.
But you grew up in Wellington, Florida.
I did. I went to Wellington High School.
And I've read a little bit about Wellington online, so I know it was one of Money Magazine's 100 best places to live in 2010.
It was?
Let's see.
That's amazing.
I'm full of trivia. And apparently strawberries are big there, is that?
Yes, I did know that. It's definitely good for strawberries. It's great for polo clubs and riding horses.
Well, tell me a little about it. What was it like growing up there?
It was really fun. I mean, I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida, and then I went to high school in Wellington, Florida, and I just remember wanting to go to Wellington so bad because of the cheerleading squad. And I cheered for the first 2 years of high school until I realized that I was screaming and I needed to not scream in order to sing, so I quit cheerleading. And it was a really fun place to grow up. It was just very homey, and I loved being by the beach. Just having it there was very grounding for me.
Obviously, you were already singing by that time. When does the singing start for you? You competed. You were in a lot of talent shows as a little kid. Is that right?
I was South Florida Idol when I was 12, 13 or something. And
a foreshadowing of things to come.
I know. I really, that was like the last one I thought I would ever do. I never thought that I'd be on The Voice eventually, which is crazy. But yeah, I always sang in talent shows and sang at recitals. My voice coach was really great at having all of our students sing live because it's such a huge part of my career. And so now I feel like way more comfortable than I would if I hadn't done that.
And early on, what kind of music did you grow up on when you were competing in these talent shows at 12? What kind of music were you singing?
I was singing country. I covered a lot of Martina McBride, and Where Would You Be was actually the song I won the South Florida Idol with, which is one of my favorite Martina songs. And I actually did some oldies. I did Swingin' on a Star. I did, what else? Unchained Melody.
Oh, wow.
And I did some stuff.
Some classics, some old school classics.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually I dabbled in some pop, but as a kid, I did country mostly.
That's interesting. So the country thing was there for you, and then you gravitated into the rock world.
I did.
How'd that happen?
West Palm Beach had an amazing rock scene. And so I would go to shows every weekend with my friends, and I just remember feeling this sense of camaraderie, like this just community feeling that I really wanted to be a part of. And eventually my friends and bands would pull me on stage and I would sing with their band, and I got the bug and really wanted to keep doing it, so I started forming my own bands. And
was the scene that sort of emo to pop punk scene that your band eventually became part of, or?
Yeah. I had a few friends in high school, and they had their own bands. I had a lot of different members quit in my band because I was this little 13, 14-year-old girl who wanted to start a band, and no one really took me seriously. But the kids who I was in school with, they did, and they were like, let's do it. And we formed a band, and we called it Hey Monday. We got signed to Columbia Records, and we released an album, went on tour with Fall Out Boy, and it was the craziest ride ever. It's amazing.
Well, let's talk about that for a little bit. First, I want to go back to you're 13 years old and putting a band together, which is kind of impressive.
Well, it was really, really, now that I look back on it, I mean, it was fun at the time, but I don't know why I ever thought that those members would stick. I mean, these guys were incredible, like world-class musicians in my eyes, and they're, 40 or something, and coming in and playing in my living room. My mom was sitting on the couch. We had to put towels like on the shelves so the china wouldn't fall off and break. I mean, it was.
Wait a minute, you're making so much noise at home that you're rattling the china up on the shelves.
It was a full
awesome.
band
A lot
practice.
of people get a practice space for just this reason.
Oh no! It was money was tight.
Understood.
So we had to kind of make do with what we had.
But your mom must obviously have really supported what you were interested in if she's
Yes.
going to, one, let you practice at home, and two, say, well, my 13-year-old playing with a bunch of older guys, that sounds okay to me.
Yeah, no, she was in the room, so it wasn't,
Well,
she
no, of
wasn't
course,
like,
I
have
understand.
fun. No, she was always very supportive and always had my best interest at heart. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be at this point in my career without her support.
Sure.
So it was amazing.
Was it a musical family? Did your mom have an interest in singing or?
Well, my dad played a little drums. He had a drum set in our house growing up, and he would always play to Boston, More Than a Feeling. That's one of my favorite songs ever now because I heard it so much growing up. But my mom never really, she doesn't have any musical skills or anything. I think my family is just a super musical family as far as loving music.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a passion for all of us. That's
So
where I
there was
get
a
it
lot
from.
of music. You grew up hearing a lot of music and a lot of different kinds of music?
A lot of different kinds. My mom, both my mom and dad always loved country, but they also loved 80s classic rock, and they would always go and see bands together like Bon Jovi and Journey and Poison. My mom absolutely loved Bret Michaels. But yeah, I mean, all those
A lot
different...
of people did.
A lot of people did. Billy Joel. I mean, there were a lot of different genres being played in my home.
That's cool. That's really cool. So you're finishing high school.
Yes.
Your band is getting signed. One interesting thing, I was reading a little about your new single, I Am Invincible, and I saw 17 magazine asked what advice you would give your 17-year-old self, and the advice was be patient.
Yeah.
While you're signing your first major label record deal, what did you have to be patient for?
That's true. I was not patient at all. I mean,
So
I
you
wouldn't have...
had really been looking for that to happen even before then?
Yeah, I mean, I took my first voice lesson when I was 4 years old, and ever since that moment, I don't remember ever wanting to do anything else with my life. So when I think about like working towards my dream and what I'm doing now, I think about it as working towards it my whole life. I never worked towards anything else. So I did feel like I was being impatient, and at 17, when I got signed, it's so funny to say this, but at 17, I was like, oh, finally, but it just felt like it took so long, and I was still so young.
I want to go back to that for a second. You took your first voice lesson at age 4.
Yes.
Because I was still taking the shoe tying lessons right around then.
I'm sure I was too. I was still on Velcro, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you study straight through from 4 onward?
I did. I think the last lesson I took was probably when I was about 12. And my voice coach, Marie Hardway, she is incredible. She taught me everything I know. And it's really, it's such an amazing thing because she taught me how to sing correctly. And that's so important. And I'm singing this song, which I'm Invincible is not an easy song to sing. And I'm singing it sometimes 3 times a day. And without her teaching me the right way to sing, I would have no voice.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to ask you about, because so many rock singers, so many people, Sam Smith, Adele, all sorts of people have vocal problems as their career goes supernova because they never did learn to sing correctly.
Right. I mean, and I feel like I kind
and
of...
especially in the rock world, I mean.
Yeah, and you don't... In the rock world, you're playing with the loud band. You're not so worried about, oh, can I hear myself? Am I straining? You're like, I'm rocking out. I don't really care what's going on in here. But I think when you're a singer who belts and you sing songs that go to the top of your register and the bottom of your register, you're running the risk of having some serious damage being done long term. So we'll see how it goes. I'm trying to be safe with it.
That's good. So you and Hey Monday, you signed this deal with Columbia, and it's also a co-label deal with Pete Wentz's label, Decadence.
Yes.
And you're out on tour, you're playing with Fall Out Boy, you're living the dream?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was an experience I'll never forget because I learned so much. I learned how to tour, and I learned from the best. I mean, Fall Out Boy have been doing it for so long, and little did I know at the time it would be their last headlining tour at the time before they took that break. So it was like
2008,
one of those...
they took a little break. They're back now, but for a minute we didn't know if it would just be solo records from those guys or there would be Fall Out Boy, right?
Yeah, and I remember the tour ending and hearing that news and being like, oh my gosh, I was on the last Fall Out Boy tour. That's crazy. But going back to, the tour itself, it was...
And Fall Out Boy tours are pretty bananas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was the first it was really the first big tour I've ever done, and we were playing arenas in Singapore and Japan, places I had never been, I never dreamed I'd ever visit. And we were playing these shows, and these fans knew our music because Pete had blasted our band on all of his blogs, and he was such a huge support system for us. So it was surreal to just show up in these places we've never been, and people know our music. We were kind of spoiled when you think about it.
So that's the upside of it. And what were the difficulties? I mean, you were a young band trying to make it. Good things happened, but it was a lot of struggle as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it happened so fast for us that I think we missed the whole building from the ground up aspect. I always went out and signed after my shows. I always felt like I was creating that hardcore fan base, but we weren't that band that played and locally, for years and years and years before we went on a world tour. So when things kind of went south, we had some really amazing fans, but we didn't have that big core fan base to keep us afloat. So when things went south, it was going south. Yeah.
So let's flash forward to The Voice. Season 3, you knew what The Voice was because you'd actually seen it.
I have,
yeah. It had been on TV already, but how does the opportunity to audition for The Voice come to you?
Fun fact, I was asked to do season 2 of The Voice, and I passed on it because Hey Monday were still together, and we were about to release our EP, and I just did not feel like I was at that point in my life at all yet. So they asked me to do season 3, and at that point, I had left Hey Monday, I moved to LA, pursued a solo career, released an EP on my own. It was not catching on, as I had hoped, and I needed this because I was grasping at all straws at that point.
The EP came out in May, and then, or earlier in that year, and then you got the chance to audition, and you got
Yes.
what I think in season 3 we weren't yet using the term 4-chair turn.
I guess not. I don't really remember. I mean, I didn't expect to get it, so I didn't even know the term existed in my mind. But yeah.
And for fans of your band, maybe it's a surprise for you to choose Blake Shelton as your coach, but knowing what we know, having talked today, country's something you were singing at the start.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily, who matches the kind of music I want to do, because at the time when I auditioned for The Voice, I really went into it with such an open mind. I thought, I'm just going to see where this takes me. And I wasn't like, okay, Adam, because I have done rock music. I just thought, who do I feel
and
like as a person?
You both have tattoos.
And we both have tattoos.
And let's face it, Adam Levine.
Well,
he's charming.
You know what? I got some serious hate for not picking him. So all these women were like, how could you not pick Adam Levine? I'm like, I'm not trying to date him. I'm trying to win The Voice here.
Here you go.
You know? But Blake, I just watched him on seasons prior, and I thought, this guy really is very nurturing, and he guides his artists. He doesn't tell them what songs to do, and that's the kind of coach I wanted and I needed.
Was the idea of pursuing a career, making a country record, pursuing a career in country on your mind when you made that choice as well?
It was there, yeah. I mean, it was in the back of my mind. I think at that time I was really not even focused on a genre at that point. I was thinking, okay, I just got to make it through a few rounds, get some exposure, and then I'll figure it out.
You made it through all the rounds.
I know. I did not think for 1 second I would win The Voice. I mean, even at the last second before Carson called my name, I really thought that I wasn't going to win. So it's just crazy to me.
Well, you did. And when did the idea of making a country record and pursuing a country career move from the back of your mind to the front of your mind?
When I did Over You on the show, I remember emailing Blake, because they give you these artist emails and you can talk to and strategize with your coaches. And I remember emailing him and saying, I really want to do Over You. I know it's a personal song, but I would really appreciate it if you and Miranda signed off on it for me.
And that's a song that he had written
about his brother. And I just remember saying to him, I think I need a song that is emotional and is a ballad because I've done all these angsty kind of songs. And he said, great, do it. And so I worked it out with the band, the voice band is like the best band on television. They're so good. They're such a good band. And I worked it out with them, and I remember singing it for Blake, and I could tell, he was touched and he was emotional about it. And I thought, that's the thing that I've always loved about country music is the lyrics. I mean, the storytelling, the aspect of storytelling has always resonated with me. So as soon as I did that, and then it went #1 on iTunes, I was like, maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I should keep doing this. And it felt really good too.
Sure, of course. It's funny, you talk about that storytelling, the personal dimension of country. It is something that you brought to your first album, Frame by Frame. Mm-hmm. You did a lot of co-writing on that record, I think 7 of the songs.
Yes.
Including one very personal song, 11. I'd love it if you could talk to us a little about that.
Sure. 11 is about my parents' divorce when I was 11, and it's an experience that I always had trouble kind of talking about with people. It didn't, because my parents drifted apart. They divorced. It was tough on my sister and I, and that's really all there is to it. And it also made it even more difficult because on the show, on The Voice, I had spoken about my dad and I not having the best relationship at the time. It's amazing now, just to put it out there. Whoever maybe not thinks that we're not okay, we're amazing. And I owe it to the show. But I remember sitting down and writing that song and it being like a therapy session and just crying and crying. And I wrote that with Nathan Chapman in Nashville. And it was just something that I really needed to get out. I needed to just get that whole experience out in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite detailed, it's quite personal, and then the video is even more detailed. One reason I know you did a lot of singing competitions as a little kid is there's a lot of pictures of you up on stage competing.
Yeah. I mean, I was decked out. I had the cowboy hat, cowboy boots, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, both of my parents were always very supportive. And my dad would take me to voice lessons when my mom couldn't. My mom would take me when my dad couldn't. They both were such a great team. And I think that's why the divorce was so difficult, because I felt like the 4 of us were just this army. And we were taking on everything. We didn't come from, money. We weren't made of money. And we still made it through. My parents made my sister and I feel like we had everything we wanted, and we did. We didn't want for anything, but it was always within the means of what we could afford.
I want to talk a little more about Frame by Frame and then get to the work on your second record.
Cool.
But one thing that strikes me about Frame by Frame, and maybe it's because you come from a rock background, but there's lots of songs on it that if you took away the banjo, they could be rock songs.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen to the radio right now. You know, it's all about the influence, and I have always been influenced by a lot of different genres. And I think the one thing that I have discovered over the past year is there's been a lot of confusion as to if I'm country, if I'm rock, if I'm pop. And
is it really?
Yeah. I mean, I think people sometimes think that country is supposed to be one thing, and I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida, but that doesn't mean I'm a girl who didn't grow up listening to country music.
That's weird. You'd only think country is only supposed to be one thing if you don't listen to country radio.
Well, that's true. Yeah, country radio is it's got so many different elements right now. So you have to. But I just think that coming on The Voice and singing one genre and then switching to another mid-season also confused people. And I think I'm at that point where I'm being me, and that is country. That is a little edgy rock. That is a little pop. And there's nothing. I want to go to bed at night knowing that I'm being my authentic self, and that's what I'm doing.
Tell me a little bit about the work on the second record. You've been doing a lot of writing and working with a lot of different people. Who have you been working with?
I just wrote a song yesterday that I'm really excited about with Natalie Hemby and Barry Dean. They did Pontoon by Little Big Town, and I've loved writing with Liz Rose, Nathan Chapman, Charles Kelly from Lady Antebellum. Kip Moore and I actually wrote a song together, which was fun, and Ross Copperman. I mean, I've had a great time.
How many songs have you got for this thing?
Oh, I have a
Because
lot.
the Nashville way of writing a song is you walk in the morning, you have your cup of coffee, and you tend to walk out in the afternoon with 2 or 3 songs.
Oh,
And that's a slow day.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, that's the thing that I love about Nashville is if you can walk out of there with what they call a work tape, which is just a guitar vocal, and you can hear an amazing song, then you're really onto something special. Because when you go out on these promo tours and you're playing at all these radio stations acoustic, that's what they're going to be hearing, the core, the bones of the song. So it's really fun to start there. That's my favorite way of working.
Well, there you go. And I Am Invincible is the first single from the second record, but you're still doing some songwriting on it?
Yes. I Am Invincible, it was a song that really touched me, and I think it was just so relevant in my life that I just needed to put it out. And I also felt like the timing was perfect with everything that was going on with women in country, that is going on with women in country. There's this movement that I'm really proud to be a part of, and I feel like I Am Invincible.
You're referring, and we were talking about this a little before we came out here, to Tomato Gate. The radio programmer said, "Oh, treat your ladies on country like they're tomatoes sprinkled on top of your salad of dudes."
Yes.
Salad of dudes. I'm sorry to
Salad of
put
dudes.
that image out there, but
yeah, you know what's but think about marinara sauce. The main ingredient is tomatoes.
okay, things just got weirder.
See? I'm just saying. I thought that was an unfortunate metaphor, but I think that the conversation needed to start. I think that dialogue needed to be opened up, and it really helped a lot of women break through this year. I think it was a really good year.
Break the tomato ceiling.
That's right.
We got time for some questions from the audience.
Hello.
What do you do? No. If a person is experiencing writer's block, what's the best way to come over that hill?
Writer's block is so frustrating. What I usually do, I mean, I step away from it, but I also, whenever I'm just like hanging out and I have thoughts, I write down the thoughts. Even if it doesn't sound poetic, even if it makes no sense, just getting it out really, really helps. And then once you're back into it, and once you're back to whatever idea you had initially, sometimes the most conversational lyrics are the best. So I wouldn't write those off.
This is in the wake of the last question, and you and Joe speaking about your influences and the genesis of your stuff. So not to sound really pedestrian, but you do come from a myriad of different influences. How do you decide the themes of your songs, or do you not decide the themes of your songs?
You mean themes as far as the genre or lyrics?
Lyrics, and then the
Any of
music
it.
around them. Any of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's always different. Sometimes a session starts with a title that I brought in, and the writers and I work around the title, and we write around it. Sometimes the writer has a melody. I mean, it really depends on the session. I like to come in with a few titles and a few concepts because, God forbid you get in the session and it's kind of stale. At least you have some stuff to fall back on.
I know you've done a lot of rock and country music. Do you see yourself doing any kind of genre in the near future?
Some different kind of genre?
Yeah.
Not in the near future, no. I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface in country, and I love the genre, and it feels natural to me, and I would love to break some more barriers in country
Maybe just
music.
every 4 years you should change it up. Polka next.
All right, I like polka.
Polka, we could do a little
Yeah.
polka, and then, your dance career after that.
Totally. I
right.
should make my own genre.
Sure.
Popka.
Okay.
That was a bad joke. Sorry. Moving on. Zip it.
We can take a question from an online viewer.
Yeah.
Madison would like to know, what advice can you give to a songwriter starting out, and which city is best to begin in?
To begin? Oh, man. Which city is best to begin? It's starting, in my eyes, it's starting to become Nashville. I mean, it's just the mecca of...
I think for songwriters, a lot of people would agree.
Yeah. I mean, some of the best writers are in Nashville.
Right. I think it's a city that really values song. I mean, there's work to be had in New York and Los Angeles, but it's a city that really values the song.
Yeah, it's a culture. And I think that if anybody wants to feel appreciated or even encouraged to keep writing and keep going for that dream, Nashville is definitely.
When did you first start writing your own songs?
The first song I wrote was when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
And it was about flowers.
Okay, all right.
It was about when you plant the seed.
Go with
it
what
grows
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was probably planting a lima bean in class that day. I think that's where it came from.
Okay, all right. Well, and any advice for that first-time songwriter?
Yes, I would. I mean, it kind of goes along with what I just talked about writing down your every thought and every feeling, because it's just people want to feel like they can relate to you. People, when they listen to songs, they want to know they're not alone. So any thought that you think is irrational or stupid or weird or out there, just write it down. And when you come back to it, you'll be able to write something out of it.
I feel better already. Cassadee, thank you so much. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.